The moment became unexpected. Karoline Leavitt broke into tears as she made a massive declaration approximately. Her husband, it wasn't simply the load of her words, it became the entirety main as much as this moment. Simply 4 days after giving delivery, she had back to one of the maximum disturbing jobs in politics. Now she has to stability motherhood with the pressures of being the youngest White House press secretary in history with uncooked feelings. She become revealing something approximately her husband that no one noticed coming, and as the details unfold, one word captured anyone's attention. This is horrible, hinting that is bigger than everybody imagined. The rise of Karoline Leavitt. A trailblazer in politics. Few may want to have anticipated that Karoline Leavitt's meteoric rise would one day cause a deeply private and emotional revelation. Approximately her husband at just 27 years. Antique. Karoline Leavitt shattered expectancies and political norms. She stepped right into a role historically reserved for pro-veterans. Because the youngest White House press secretary in American records, she did not just tackle the activity, she redefined it. From the moment she stood behind the podium, it became clean that she wasn't going to follow inside the footsteps of her predecessors, in contrast to those earlier than her, who regularly performed protection against the press. It arrived with an offensive method. She became unafraid to confront reporters, call out media bias, and insist her very own policies of engagement. Her first briefing lasted 47 minutes longer than maximum commencing briefings, and wasn't only a display of self-assurance, it became an assertion of intent. She wasn't here to be a figure head, she turned into right here to take manipulate. She stood corporation towards difficult thinking from seasoned newshounds like NBC, Peter Alexander, and she, or he, wasted no time proving that she could keep her personal inside the high press arena of political media. Critics predicted inexperience to paintings against her. However, Leavitt countered with unwavering self-belief. The message become clean. She changed into now not simply filling a position, she changed into reshaping it. However, her rise to power wasn't accidental. It had been getting ready for this second for years. A New Hampshire local, she studied communications at St. Anselm College. This college turned into wherein she first developed an ardor for politics and media approach. She started her profession running in the Trump White House as an assistant press secretary, and then later became the countrywide press secretary for his 2024 campaign. Her loyalty to Trump's motion and her capability to address the short-paced needs of political messaging made her a natural choice when he needed a person to guide the press office in his new administration. What set Leavitt aside wasn't just her young people or her combative style, it turned into her approach to conversation. She noticed political panorama shifting. Conventional media turned into losing effect, while unbiased reporters, podcasters, and social media influencers one gained extraordinary attain. Rather than catering to mainstream outlets, she targeted on engaging these newer structures. She was out to make sure that management's message reached audiences often not noted by conventional press. This wasn't just an adjustment, it changed into a radical transformation of the way the White House engaged with the public beneath her management. The press workplace welcomed figures who had by no means earlier than been given admission to high-level political briefings. Conservative influencers, digital media personalities, and podcast hosts have been all of a sudden given a seat on the desk alongside legacy media outlets. To a few, it changed into a volatile approach. To Leavitt, it changed into commonplace sense. In her view, hundreds of thousands of Americans have been getting their information from alternative structures. It changed into the White House's process to meet them there. Her formidable method didn't go omitted. White House Communications Director Stephen Chung referred to as her first press conference the most successful ever, a declaration that dispatched shock waves via Washington. Even the ones skeptical of her appointment have been pressured to acknowledge that she had changed the dynamic in ways nobody predicted. The vintage version of press members of the family, wherein the White House played by using the guidelines of mainstream media, was long past underneath Leavitt. A brand new generation had began of path. Her role wasn't without controversy. As a young girl in a high-profile role, she faced scrutiny no longer only for her politics, however, for her private existence. Her marriage Nicholas Richo, a 1,559-year-old real estate mogul, have become a topic of infinite speculation. Critics puzzled the 32-12 months age gap, others brushed off it as beside the point. However, via it all, Leavitt remained unfazed. She had bigger battles to combat. Her meteoric upward thrust wasn't pretty much proving herself. It was about reshaping the political verbal exchange landscape. And as she stood at the middle of it all, coping with the kingdom's maximum, scrutinized press briefings with the composure of a seasoned pro, she knew that her achievement became simply the start. What no one realized at the time, however, was that backstage she became wearing a non-public burden that could quickly take center stage. What she would reveal about her husband would depart even her most ardent supporters taken aback. The event that modified the entirety: Trump's assassination strive on July 13, 2024. The world watched in horror as gunfire erupted at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Chaos unfolded in seconds. Donald Trump, standing earlier than a sea of supporters, changed into struck through a bullet. The strive on his existence dispatched surprise waves across the nation. The scene was surreal. Secret Service marketers rushed in, frantic voices shouted over the confusion. The previous president became bleeding, but nevertheless standing. The attack changed into, unlike whatever in present-day American politics, an immediate assault on no longer only a guy but a movement. For Karoline Leavitt, the moment turned into deeply personal. She wasn't in the crowd that day. She wasn't even in Washington. She changed into a domestic cradling her newborn son, who become just 3 days antique. She had grew to become on the TV to watch the rally and expected nothing extra than a normal campaign occasion. What she noticed as a substitute could change the whole lot. The footage of the assault performed in an endless loop. Trump become wounded but defiant. His supporters screamed in disbelief. A bullet intended to stop his existence grazed his ear. The load of the moment hit Karoline like a wave. She turned into a mom now conserving a tiny lifestyles in her hands, but she turned into also a political warrior within the center of one of the most consequential moments in records. She had spent months as Trump's campaign spokeswoman. Karoline had defended him against relentless assaults and had navigated the brutal global of media and politics on his behalf. However, not anything had prepared her for this, after which, within the middle of the whirlwind, she decided a decision that most new mothers would in no way even remember. She turned to her husband Nicholas Rio and said, "Looks as if I'm going back work 4 days." It is all the time she allowed herself. Just 4 days after giving delivery, she was again on display. Screen returned in the front of cameras, returned inside the combat. The public turned into stunned. Her frame was nonetheless restoration, and her son was slightly per week vintage. However, for Leavitt, there has been no preference. The president literally positioned his existence on the line to win this election. She later defined, "The least I ought to do is get again to paintings." Speedy. The selection wasn't pretty much loyalty. It turned into approximately obligation in her mind. Trump survival wasn't only a political event, it was an image of resilience, willpower, of unfinished business. And if he should take a bullet and maintain going, what excuse did she have? But the transition wasn't clean. The burden of motherhood clashed with the demands of politics at the same time as she stood on the White House podium fielding difficult questions. Her coronary heart was none the less with the child she had barely began to bond with, leaving the baby each day to go to paintings. It does destroy your coronary heart, she admitted. However, she pressed on, just as she usually had. Her husband played a critical role in making all of it feasible. Nicholas Rio, a man recognized for staying inside the history, stepped up in approaches the general public never saw. Whilst Leavitt fought political battles, he changed into at home, making sure their new child's son changed into cared for. His flexibility as a businessman allowed her to throw herself again into her task without hesitation. The assassination attempt had shaken the country, but it had additionally solidified something inside Lev. It had strengthened why she become on this combat, why she had placed her private life on preserve, why she had made sacrifices that maximum human beings could in no way understand. And as she stood in the front of the press, simply days after one of the most traumatic occasions in modern politics, she knew that this changed into best the beginning. What the general public didn't understand at the time became that at the back of her sharp composure, something deeper turned into unfolding. she wasn't just juggling politics and motherhood, she turned into about to reveal something deeply personal about her husband. This revelation could surely garner enormous interest. Karoline Leavitt's love story, a strength couple. Inside the making in the fast-paced global of politics, wherein every flow is scrutinized, Karoline Leavitt's dating with Nicholas Richo became in no way going to fly under the radar. Their tale didn't follow the standard Washington script. It wasn't a political marriage, solid through connections or ambition. It changed into something absolutely one of a kind. They met at a political event. The nighttime became filled with the standard handshakes, networking, and energy performs. Lit become already a growing famous person she turned into in her detail. Karoline thrived inside the public eye and her self-assurance was unmistakable. Rio, a successful real estate mogul, became turned into the opposite. He became reserved, non-public, and a person who desired movements over phrases. He wasn't there to make headlines. He had spent a long time constructing an enterprise empire far away from the cameras. Yet, while the two have been brought through a mutual buddy, something clicked on the surface. They couldn't have been more one of a kind. It was young, formidable, and politically fearless Richo, turned into 32 years older, a pro-businessman without an interest in social media or public attention in an age where online presence defines achievement. He had none. No Instagram, no Twitter, now not even a LinkedIn web page. It became nearly extraordinary, especially for a person along with his stage of wealth, and have an effect on. However, where in some noticed incompatibility, they noticed balance. She thrived on engagement. He favored a quiet method. She commanded rooms. He located them. Their courting wasn't simply unconventional, it became polarizing. The age gap became an immediate speaking factor. Social media erupted with speculation. Critics claimed it turned into opportunistic. Others questioned the sincerity of their bond. Each photograph she published with Rio invited a barrage of remarks. Is that your dad? Some asked mockingly. Others had been extra brutal. Your husband may be your grandfather. And also you choose every person else. One Instagram person wrote, Leavitt in no way entertained noise. She answered no longer with defensiveness, however, with unwavering conviction. He is my #1 fan, the pleasant dad, and just the quality man I've ever met. She published. If people idea she could be embarrassed. They misunderstood her absolutely, but at the same time as the general public speculated, the two of them quietly built something actual. Their dating wasn't a spectacle. It became private, intentional, and deeply rooted in shared values. They didn't flaunt their love inside the headlines. And that became exactly how Rio preferred it. Even their engagement was a mirrored image of who they had been as a couple on Christmas Day 2023. Inside the intimacy of their domestic, Rio proposed no grand public display, no staged moment for social media, only a quiet question between those who already knew the answer. The next day, it couldn't incorporate her joy. She shared an unmarried photograph of Rio on one knee with a sparkling diamond catching the winter light. The high-quality Christmas of my lifestyles. I get to marry the man of my dreams. I feel so overwhelmingly blessed. Thank you, God. Their wedding followed months later. The ceremony became as private as their engagement. In a world where political figures frequently stage lavish weddings, theirs become exclusive, small, intimate, and far away from the public eye. No press, no exclusives, and no leaked information. While requested about the day, it actually up to date her bio to encompass one word, wife, that changed into all she wanted to say. Marriage did not sluggish them down, it increased their trajectory. Whilst it took on one of the maximum disturbing jobs in politics, Rio endured running his actual property empire. He stayed within the shadows, by no means vying for interest, in no way the usage of their dating for personal gain, but his presence in her life became undeniable behind the scenes. He became her anchor when she made the remarkable selection to go back to work 4 days after giving start. He became the only who made it viable while she faced the press. Rio was at home with their newborn son, ensuring their circle of relatives stayed intact notwithstanding the chaos. It frequently credits him as her biggest supporter, a man who asks for not anything but offers the entirety. I remind myself this job is transient. It is the possibility of an entire life, and I recognize one day our son could be Proud of his mama, however, what the public did not recognize was just how a whole lot Rio had sacrificed to his position in this story wasn't just that of a supportive husband, it was something a good deal deeper. And while Leavitt eventually broke down in tears and discovered her big announcement about him, the sector sooner or later understood just how a great deal he had been wearing all alongside Nicholas Rio. The man behind the success, Nicholas Rio, never set out to be inside the highlight, even as his spouse changed into making records. As the youngest White House press secretary, he remained inside the history regular, non-public and centered, but in spite of his deliberate distance from public attention, Rio's story becomes certainly one of extraordinary resilience, ambition, and quiet influence. His adventure wasn't the everyday course of a wealthy businessman. Earlier than he constructed his multi-million greenback real estate empire, and earlier than he have become a key discern in conservative circles, Rio faced a fact that few would expect: homelessness at simply 18 years. Antique. He determined himself without a home, without a protection net, and without a clear direction. Most humans in his role would have struggled simply to continue to exist. However, for Rio, failure turned into in no way an alternative. In preference to seeing useless ends, he saw possibilities with not anything. However, willpower, he labored relentlessly. He saved each dollar he could. By early 2000s, he had set his attractions on real estate, specifically the left-out, rundown houses of Hampton Beach, New Hampshire. While others disregarded them as lost reasons, he noticed possibility. He began small, buying homes in want of serious maintenance, fixing them up, and turning them into exceedingly sought after leases. His method became easy but effective: invest in areas others omitted, create cost wherein no person else turned, into searching, and reinvest every fragrance lower back into boom. By 2005, Rio had gathered an excellent portfolio: 15 buildings, 70 condominium devices, and a recognition as a wise forward, wondering investor. It did not take lengthy for his actual estate empire to make bigger beyond Hampton Beach. His agency, Rio Enterprises LLC, grew hastily. He acquired properties throughout New England. His approach remained the same: target undervalued houses, rework them into high call for belongings, and in no way overextend. By the point most people discovered his call, he turned into already a wealthy person. But Rio's influence wasn't just financial. His properties have become accumulating places for political activities, specifically within conservative circles. Wasn't just buying and selling homes, he was shaping spaces in which moves took root. Considered one of his residences became a number venue for girls for Trump gatherings, an essential initiative that mobilized women citizens and reinforced the conservative base. In contrast to maximum real property moguls, Rio wasn't only a businessman, he was a quiet pressure inside the political international, ensuring that his fulfillment had a broader effect. Notwithstanding his developing fortune, he never sought popularity. In contrast to other rich figures who flaunted their fulfillment, Rio stayed deliberately low profile. He in no way gave interviews, rarely appeared in pics, and prevented social media completely. For him, fulfillment wasn't approximately interest, it became about consequences. His impact extended some distance beyond commercial enterprise. It touched the conservative motion in ways maximum human beings by no means found out. But as much as Rio stored himself out of the public eye, his marriage to Karoline Leavitt unavoidably pulled him into the communique. The age hole between them became a topic of endless speculation. Critics attempted to frame their relationship as transactional. What they did not apprehend became the muse of mutual admire and shared values that made their partnership paintings. Whilst Leavitt took on one of the most excessive strain roles in American politics, Rio ensured that their home lifestyles remained solid. Whilst their son Nicholas Robert was born, he didn't hesitate to take a step again from his enterprise to support his wife's demanding career. For a person who had built an empire from nothing, shifting priorities wasn't a sacrifice, it became a testimony to his unwavering dedication to his own family. And yet, regardless of his efforts to remain behind the scenes, Rio's call turned into approximately to take center stage when Karoline Leavitt broke into tears and discovered a big statement. Approximately her husband, it wasn't just about their non-public lifestyles. It became approximately The sacrifices he had made, the role he had performed, and the truth approximately the man, the arena concept they knew what she disclosed left insiders stunned. It proved that Rio's quiet have an impact on changed into some distance more than everybody had imagined. The large declaration, what Karoline Leavitt discovered approximately her husband for weeks. Speculation have been swirling Karoline Lev. It were balancing a new child, an old-eating career, and the weight of relentless scrutiny. But regardless of the stress, she had never wavered. She had back to paintings just 4 days after giving start, a choice that greatly surprised the general public. But something had changed: her standard composure, her sharp focus, her unwavering presence behind the rostrum. All of it appeared specific. Then in a second that stuck even the maximum hardened newshounds off. Protect. She broke down in tears. The room fell silent as Leavitt paused and gathered herself. The cameras captured her unfiltered emotion, raw, undeniable. Then she spoke. I've been asked typically how I've controlled to balance this job, being a brand new mother, and everything it's included. She began. The truth is I couldn't have carried out any of this without my husband. It became a rare glimpse in the back of the carefully managed public image she had maintained till that second. Nicholas Rio have been a shadow figure, an influential businessman, a dedicated father, but someone who had in large part stayed out of the political fray. Now Lev it become making it clean just how a good deal he had sacrificed to guide her meteoric rise. She found out that within the month's main, as much as the delivery of their son Rio had decided few knew approximately, he had intentionally stepped lower back from his real property empire. He adjusted his timetable and shifted duty within his business enterprise to ensure that their family would not crumble under the stress of a career. After I instructed Nicholas, I desired to go back to paintings as soon as viable. He did not hesitate. He just stated we're going to discern it out. And he did, leaving the baby each day to visit paintings. It breaks your coronary heart, Lev. It admitted. I've informed my husband so often. This is terrible. I experience terrible for leaving him. However, knowing that he is with his father, understanding that Nicholas is there every step of the way, makes it viable for me to do that activity. Her phrases painted an image of a person whose strength and effect weren't just measured in commercial enterprise fulfillment, but inside the way he had willingly reshaped his life for the woman he loved in a political global in which conventional roles frequently dominate. Rio had quietly redefined what guide appeared like their balancing act, become methodical and intentional every morning, become a careful orchestration of obligations, press briefings, policy conferences, cell phone calls with global leaders, all even as making sure their son's wishes had been met. Rio ensured that no matter how chaotic its timetable have become, she never had to fear approximately Nico's well-being whilst he ran his enterprise from a distance, delegating selection and restructuring operations. His priority remained domestic. It turned into a lovely admission, one which left the press corps momentarily speechless. The photograph of power couples in Washington had constantly observed a predictable pattern: ambition frequently clashing with non-public life, one accomplice's career taking priority over the others. But Leavitt and Rio had rewritten the rules. Her tears weren't just a sign of exhaustion or strain. They were a reflection of the intensity of gratitude she felt for the person who had given up so much without asking for something in go back. I hope that at some point while our son is old enough, he'll understand what his father did for us, she said as the briefing ended. The load of her words lingered. What had started as a recurring press conference had turned into something deeply private, a rare moment of vulnerability from one of the most scrutinized ladies in politics. And because the news unfolded had become clear, this was extra than simply an emotional second. It turned into the acknowledgement of a man whose quiet sacrifices had made history viable. However, whilst the general public absorbed Lev its heartfelt confession, one query remained: what would this mean for the destiny, with Rio restructuring his enterprise and Leavitt on the center of the political international? What got here next for this not likely energy couple? The answer would wonder absolutely everyone. The bigger photograph, love, politics, and energy. Karoline Leavitt's emotional revelation about her husband wasn't just a non-public confession. It became a moment that redefined the communique approximately Electricity, sacrifice, and ambition in contemporary politics. Leavitt and Nicholas Rio had rewritten the script. Their tale wasn't one among opposition. As an alternative, it changed into considered one of deliberate strategic stability. And it pressured the political international to reconsider what it definitely approached to assist a partner in electricity. The media is continually keen for controversy. They dissected her, each circulate. What became she placing an impossible trendy for running mothers? Was she sacrificing too much within the name of political loyalty? Those were the questions. Circulating in headlines on line boards and political speak shows her work ethic failed to move overlooked, though her supporters hailed her for example of resilience, a female who refused to let anything gradual her right down to them. She embodied the very spirit of America, hard, unwavering, and unafraid to break norms. Her detractors, however, noticed something exclusive to them. She changed into a symbol of a political gadget that demanded an excessive amount of from its humans, one which prioritized optics over fact. But via it all, it remained focused. She wasn't looking to be an icon for working mothers or a feminist trailblazer. She changed into, in reality, doing what she believed in, and in that unwavering dedication, she cemented herself as one of the most compelling figures in Trump's White House. Her loyalty didn't pass unnoted by way of the president. Both Donald Trump had continually valued folks who stood by means of him through controversy and chaos, and Leavitt had proven her willpower time and time again, from her role as his campaign spokeswoman to her fearless managing of the clique. She had emerged as a relied-on figure in his management. He publicly praised her calling her work exceptional and making it clear that she changed into greater than just a press secretary. She became a key player within the movement he had constructed. Do you think Karoline Leavitt's go back to the White House 4 days after giving start became a responsible desire? Proportion your mind with it. Within the feedback, we would love to pay attention for now. We're accomplished. Catch you within the next video.